So if I was starting over 20% body fat, here's what I do. So I've been over 20% body fat a couple of times in my life. The first time being when I first started weightlifting. So when I was around 16 to 18 years old, I went on a bulk and gained quite a lot of fat in the space of 2 years. But then during university, I went on a cut and lost around 15 kilos for a bodybuilding competition. However, I made a lot of mistakes and I lost a lot of muscle mass and strength, and the whole cut was just longer than it needed to be. Now, the second time I gained a lot of weight was actually last year. I gained around 12 kilos and again went over 20% body fat. But in the beginning of this year, I managed to do another cut where I lost 10 kilograms of body fat. And this cut was a lot more effective, where I managed to maintain my muscle mass and my strength. However, I still made a few mistakes that I shouldn't have done. So here's what I do now if I was again starting over at 20% body fat. Now, this strategy is the most effective strategy if you want to maintain your muscle and your strength while you're dropping body fat. So let's get into it. So the first step, instead of straight away going into a calorie deficit, I would just start off by eating at a maintenance and getting some steps in. So the reason I gained a lot of fat last year was simply because I was just eating in a consistent calorie surplus and I just wasn't moving much. So my expenditure was very low and my consumption was very high. I would basically go to the gym, train a few clients, then train myself, which usually would just be weights, no cardio, then come home and sit at home all day without moving. Now, my body is used to moving a lot. So throughout my early and mid-20s, so during university, I would always be moving. I would be going out partying, holidays, and even in the gym, I would do a lot of cardio. So I was constantly moving around. And even when I was a PT in London, I would also be moving a lot because I would take public transport to work. I would try and walk as much as possible. I would go out and meet my friends on the weekend. Because the weather wasn't too hot, it was quite nice. But here in Dubai, it's so hot and humid all the time. So it's just like one season, it's just always hot and humid. It's impossible to walk outside half the time. So over here, I don't do that much walking and I don't get that many steps in. It's very difficult. And that's why I gained a lot of fat last year, because I just stopped moving. I stopped being active. And I didn't go from 10% to 20% body fat in a few months. It actually took quite a long time. It took around a year for me to gain that fat. This is how I believe many people go over 20% body fat. It's not because they're eating bad and they're not moving for a short period of time, but rather for a long period of time where they're over-consuming their calories on a daily basis and they're just not moving. So the simplest way to start losing body fat is to just eat at a caloric maintenance. So lower your calories by a little bit and just start moving more throughout the day. And you don't need to do anything too taxing on the body. Simply just going for a walk will be fine. Now, by walking an hour extra a day and eating at a maintenance, this should allow you to drop between 0.5 and 1 pound of body fat per week. Now, how do you actually know if you're eating at a maintenance? Well, you need to use a calorie calculator, and I have one in the description below. You can just click on the link, download it and use it, plug in your values and figure out your maintenance calories. And then once you have that value, stick to that value on a daily basis and you'll start to lose body fat as long as you're moving more. Now, this is a much more sustainable way to drop body fat. It's not meant to be a quick fix and help you to drop fat in a short amount of time. This is going to help you preserve as much muscle mass as possible and preserve your strength while you're on your cut, because that's the most important thing to do. You want to maintain or even build muscle mass so that you look more aesthetic and you just have a better physique. So this long-term strategy will help with that and will help you to do a full body recomposition. Now, before I get into the next step, I just want to add that you should be weight training between 3 to 6 times a week if you want to do a full body recomposition. If you're implementing these strategies but you're not weight training, then yes, you'll lose fat, but you won't have much muscle mass on you and therefore you'll have no shape. You'll just look flat. And on this channel, I want to help you guys look freaking aesthetic. So not just to lose fat, but to also help build your muscle mass and strength along the way so you can become confident as f***. So make sure to weight train while implementing these strategies. So the second step is, once I hit a plateau from walking an hour extra a day, I would increase my step count to 12,000 steps a day. So by walking 1 hour a day, that's around 6,000 to 8,000 steps. And as I mentioned before, that'll help you to burn around 0.5 to 1 pound of body fat per week. Now, if you increase that step count to 12,000 steps, so adding an extra 45,000 steps, that'll help you to burn another 0.5 to 1 pound per week if you're keeping your calories at a maintenance. Again, you don't want to drop calories if you don't need to, because you're going to need those calories to recover properly from pushing really hard in the gym. You don't want to start lowering calories too quickly because you'll end up losing muscle mass at a faster rate, and that's not what we want. We want to lower calories very slowly so that you can preserve as much muscle tissue as possible, because it's so hard to build muscle mass and to preserve it. So as you can see, I would increase my expenditure but keep my consumption the same, so that I would drop fat slowly but still be able to preserve my muscle mass, which is the most important thing. So guys, if you hit a plateau, then just increase your activity, increase your step count a little bit more. Okay, so now once I've hit a plateau from doing steps, so I'm not losing any more weight, then I would start to drop my calories. Now by this point, you should have a new low maintenance, because remember, when you start to lose weight, your maintenance calories will also drop because you have less body mass, so therefore your body requires less calories throughout the day. So eventually we'll just have to start dropping calories. And in my opinion, this is the best time to start. Once you've lost a little bit of fat from doing more activity, then it's time to start dropping calories. So I wouldn't go for a huge drop in calories at the start, so say 1,000, but you want to start off with a small caloric deficit. So 200 to 300 calories off your maintenance, something that's sustainable, something that you aren't really going to notice, and you're still able to perform at your best, and you'll still have enough energy throughout the day. Now, this drop in calories should come from carbs or fats. You want to try and keep your protein intake as high as possible. And I recommend consuming 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight every single day. Now, the more you cut back on calories, the more important it is for you to keep your protein intake as high as possible, because that's going to help you preserve as much muscle tissue as possible. Data actually shows that people who are in an energy deficit will benefit more from having a higher protein intake, because they're able to preserve more muscle mass and even sometimes build muscle mass, as long as they're doing some sort of resistance training. And that's why it's super important for you to keep your protein intake high and drop your calories from either carbs or fats. Now, a 200 to 300 calorie drop off your maintenance will help you to approximately shed off another half a pound per week. Don't do something silly and drop your calories by 1,000, because you'll hit a plateau much sooner and you won't have any more space to drop your calories further if you need to. Remember, the target is to keep your calories as high as possible for as long as possible before dropping them. Step 4 is, once I hit a plateau from doing steps and dropping calories, I would then add a cardio routine in the gym. Now, this routine would progress every 3 weeks for 12 weeks. I would start with 20 minutes 4 times per week of incline walking on the max incline and speed 6. Again, nothing too intense, so I still have energy throughout the day. After 3 weeks, I would up this to 40 minutes 4 times per week to increase my caloric expenditure further. After another 3 weeks, I would increase the frequency to 6 times per week at 40 minutes, and then finally increase to 60 minutes every single day on the same incline and the same speed. At this point, I'll be doing 1 hour of cardio in the morning and 12,000 steps per day, which is approximately 2 hours of walking. So in total, I'll be doing around 3 hours of activity. And by the end of the day, I'll be pretty tired. And that's why it's super important to still keep my calories pretty high. So if I was on low calories trying to do this, then yeah, I'll be pretty dead. And by this point, a few months would have gone by and you should be sub 15% body fat. Now, the final step is to drop calories further, but that's only if you want to get closer to that 10% body fat range. This is going to be something that's going to be very difficult, because you're going to be out of energy and you're not going to be able to perform. So that's why I wouldn't advise to do this. I would stick around the 12 to 15% body fat once you get there, and then just eat at a maintenance and just keep being active and doing at least 10,000 steps per day. But if you do want to get closer to that 10% body fat, or even go sub 10% body fat, then you need to drop your calories further. And once you hit a plateau from losing fat, then drop your calories by another 200 to 300 and keep doing that until you reach 8 to 10% body fat. But again, this is not going to be sustainable. It's going to be very hard and your mental health will start to deteriorate. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend just sticking between 12 to 15% body fat once you get there, and keeping your calories at a maintenance slightly below so you can stay lean. Also, one thing I want to add is that do not drop your calories below 1,000 while doing this, because you're going to end up with all sorts of injuries. Your mental health will start to deteriorate. You're going to be out of energy and you're not going to be able to push hard in the gym, and you will definitely lose a lot of muscle mass and strength. So just be wary of that. Don't go below 1,000 calories off your maintenance. Now, once you have hit your ideal body fat percentage and you're pretty satisfied with the way you look, then you want to reverse diet slowly back to your maintenance calories so you don't put any unnecessary fat. And if you want to build more muscle while staying lean, then I recommend eating at a maintenance or eating in a slight calorie surplus, but still get your movement in and still try and get your steps in, so that way you can still stay lean. Also, try and do a suitable amount of cardio that you can handle on a consistent basis. And I recommend doing around 120 to 150 minutes per week of steady state zone 2 cardio. And finally, let's talk about how you should train while you're trying to drop body fat. So as I mentioned before, you want to train anywhere between 3 to 6 times a week if you want to preserve as much muscle tissue as possible. Now, what about rep ranges and volume? So for rep ranges, I suggest sticking between the 10 to 15 rep range, because you want to try and focus on form and mind-muscle connection while you're in a caloric deficit. If you go below a 10 to 15 rep range, so say you start doing 5 reps, then you're going to be training more for strength. And that's the last thing you want to do while you're in a calorie deficit, because you're more likely to get injured because you don't have the calories and the nutrients in your system to be able to recover properly. So that's why I suggest to stick to higher reps between 10 to 15 on each exercise, just while you're in a calorie deficit and you're trying to lose body fat. And for volume, you don't want to be overtraining. So you don't need to be doing 20 plus sets per week for every single muscle group. I would say stick between 8 to 16 or even max 20 sets per week for each muscle group. Remember, rest and recovery is going to be super important for you while you're in a calorie deficit. So that's why you need to train smart, train with higher reps, focus more on the movement, the mind-muscle connection, the time under tension, and make sure to not exhaust your central nervous system all the time. So now, how are you actually going to do all of this and implement all of these strategies? Well, a shift in mindset is required. So when I went over 20% body fat, I became lazy. I had a lack of discipline. I stopped focusing on my priorities, and I just became comfortable with myself. So I had to literally change my entire mindset to get down to 10% body fat. So here's my advice for you guys. I would say to remove all of the distractions that are holding you back. Remove all of the toxic people that don't support your goals. Be more disciplined with what you need to do every single day. Don't think about it, just go get up and do it. Remove all of the sugary and processed foods you have lying around in the house. That will make it much more easier for you to drop body fat. And make your entire environment a lot easier for you to reach your goal. That's the best advice anyone's ever given me. So remove all of the unnecessary distractions that are holding you back, so you can just focus on achieving your goal. And if that's dropping body fat, then remove anything that's coming in the way of that. Make sure to track every single thing on a daily basis, whether that being your cardio, your training, your diet. Make sure to track, because if you're not tracking, you're slacking, is what I like to say. And it just becomes a lot easier for you if you need to change anything down the line, if you had to plateau, for example. So track every single thing, get into that mentality of being disciplined enough to track everything, to get your things done without even thinking about it. And over time, it will just become routine for you. And then you don't need the motivation, you just rely on discipline alone. So change your entire mindset, change your environment, remove toxic people out of your life, remove all of the distractions. If you want to drop below 15% body fat and even get to that 10% body fat, you need to do this. You can't just sit there in your comfortable life, because if you're going to be the same and try and drop body fat while being in the same mindset where you've got over 20% body fat, then it's not going to work. You need to change your mind first, become more disciplined with yourself, realize that you've become comfortable, you've let a lot of things go, you've lacked discipline, and start to change all that. Change your entire life, change your mindset, and you'll be on your way to dropping that body fat. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you are using my strategies to drop body fat, then drop it down in the comments below. I'll be intrigued to know if you actually have dropped a lot of body fat and you have transformed your body and your entire life. So drop it down in the comments. It will help me out a lot. And if you really did enjoy this video and you found it helpful, then do me a favor and smash the like button. And if you like my content, then do me another favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications, because I'm going to be releasing a video every single week and you don't want to miss them. And if you want to know how to maximize your fat loss in just 4 weeks, then I recommend watching this video next. And remember, stay natty, stay clean, and peace.